Linda, are you good to get started?
Good to go.
Can we start this up? Well, I'll start introducing myself. I am Lauren Cataccio, or Fitzgerald, maiden name. I am a head striver head cook for the striver group for Foodqu. And Linda here, who'll be cooking tonight, is the sous cook for the same team. So we're very similar eaters. The word balance has been used and overused way too many times, but that's what I consider it. I love to indulge, but also get those salads in and those extra veggies. So tonight we'll be doing, Linda will be cooking some brunch, which is my favorite. So one of hers too. So if you live near Millis, Massachusetts, near Tangerini's farm, Linda is co-owner and lives there and is the chef, and everything is so delicious. The brunch there is top notch. So I've had many of their beverages and food, but tonight, just to give a quick background, I'll be making just a fun spin on a mimosa Bellini that I love to do. And then Linda will be cooking some brunch meals for us. So Linda is, like I said, a farm owner, chef, my friend, a mom, wife, all the things. So she's amazing. She's so creative in her cooking. Real quick story, brought deviled eggs to a party once, and I used food coloring to make them green because it was for St. Patrick's Day. And Linda said, "Oh, did you use avocado to make them green?" It never crossed my mind. Food coloring, I don't know. So Linda has all these fun little tips always for, in natural ways to make food yummy. And either way, I'll make this cocktail now, and then I'll switch it over to Linda, who will be cooking the rest of the meal. So I have, this one is probably my favorite. So easy. Champagne. Prosecco is what I would suggest. To make basically a Bellini without having all that peach juice. I love the flavor, but it just gets acidic after a while. I don't love it, having too many at least. But this is my favorite hack. So it's a San Pellegrino, it's clementine and peach. So you basically just do half, for me, champagne, half soda water, clementine and peach flavored. And it's just the perfect mix. I also, if I am at a party or I have people over and I don't really feel like drinking, just having this extra little fun drink in a champagne glass makes it extra fun. So that is I'm already going on it right now. So that is my favorite, and it's so pretty. It's nice and pink, perfect for Easter, I'd say. So just has a little bit of pastel hint to it. And then one other little hack that I love doing is same thing, champagne. And this one's the synergy, but California citrus. If you get a citrus kombucha, so just mix, again, I do half and half. My husband likes a little more like 3/4 kombucha, a quarter, or maybe 2/3 kombucha, a third champagne, but whatever your delight, you follow that. So get a citrus kombucha, mix it with champagne, and it tastes like a mimosa, in my opinion, but you're getting some probiotics. It's just healthier, I think, than drinking just full orange juice, especially if you're having multiple glasses. But it also tastes delicious. And again, that whole, if you don't really feel like drinking or you don't want much to drink, just having kombucha in a little champagne glass, nobody knows you're not drinking alcohol if that's a thing for you. But it also, so great hack if you're pregnant or breastfeeding or anything that's keeping you away from drinking. It's also just, a fun way to have a beverage while everyone else does. We just let somebody else into the group now. Hi, Tori. Thanks for coming. So they're just simple hacks, but so delicious. So champagne and kombucha, or champagne and a little clementine and peach soda water to make a little Bellini. And these can be found Target, Walmart, Whole Foods, they're Amazon probably with everything else. So that's it. I'm going to hand this over to Linda because she has some more exciting things for tonight. And feel free to leave something in the chat room. We'll be sure to answer throughout the class. If you have any questions or just want to let us know what your FQ is or anything you love about Foodqu, feel free to leave it there, and enjoy.
Thanks so much, Lauren. So hi, my name is Linda, and this is the first time I've done this little kombucha and champagne or prosecco before, and it is pretty tasty. I'm definitely a fan, so we'll be sipping on that throughout the class for sure. So excuse me. So tonight we're going to be doing 2 different brunch options. These 2 have several different variations that you can do on them. There's also different spins and lots of different toppings that you can put or ingredients that you can swap in and out. So the first is going to be a sweet potato waffle. So like Lauren said, I own a farm with my husband, Steve, and we're located in Millis, Massachusetts. So one of our things that we are just wrapping up are some of our sweet potatoes and our storage crops. So sweet potatoes are a huge thing in our household. We eat a lot of them during the winter, and they store just about until right around now. So I'm actually using some of our last sweet potatoes and to make these waffles. So what I'm going to do is actually mix in all of these ingredients in my blender. So I roasted some sweet potatoes. I love to do this the night before because when it gets to brunch or breakfast, nobody wants to be sitting there trying to figure out if they're going to steam or roast or, you know, how they're going to cook a sweet potato. It just takes too long. And the night before, I'll toss an extra sweet potato in the oven while I'm roasting dinner or something like that. I let it cook for about an hour or so until it's soft, depending on the size. For this recipe, which everybody will get sent the recipes, but for this recipe, I'm using about 1.5 cups. You can definitely scale back this recipe. It's super easy to scale this one. I tend to make a little bit more, this size batch, whereas if I only need a little bit, sometimes I'll make a half batch of this, but I tend to err on this side. My son, who is 7, loves taking these to school for lunch. So it's just a super easy thing to pack in the lunchbox. And it's also, it's going to be filling and sustaining him for the rest of the day. So, so we've got 1.5 cups of sweet potatoes. And like I said, I'm going to toss these all into my blender and scrape that in there. Now, all I did was roast this, and then once it was roasted, I peeled it and then just mashed it with a fork. Nothing special. We're also throwing in 4 eggs, and I've got in here, I have a teaspoon of vanilla extract as well. These are just the egg yolks, by the way. And then I use half oats and half flour for this. So the oats, I use just a rolled oat, and then I pulse it in a food processor or a blender for just a little bit, just to get it nice and crushed. It's not like super, super fine, like a powder, like a flour, but it's a lot finer than your regular rolled oats. Toss that in there. Good sticking power in terms of really binding the waffles together, but also really sustaining you throughout the day. And in here, I have a cup of flour. So some alternatives for this, you could do almond flour. You could sub all flour instead of doing half oats and half flour. I haven't tried it with like a different type of flour other than like a regular all-purpose and an almond flour, but I'm sure you could probably use a 1-to-1 ratio of a gluten-free blend as well. I also have 2 tablespoons of maple sugar in here. I love subbing maple sugar for regular sugar, especially when it comes to breakfast items, because it just plays so nicely with the the sweet potato and everything else that you're doing here. You also really don't need to add a sugar to this. You can also totally use a honey or something like that as well. So that's going in there. And then we have in here, I just have some baking powder. I also have cinnamon. So for the cinnamon, I'm using a royal cinnamon from Burlap and Barrel. And then I have a little bit of salt, and I have some orange peel. This is from Pensie's Spice. I love keeping these on hand. This is a dried orange peel. You can rehydrate this, or you can just use it as is. I don't end up rehydrating it in a lot of my recipes because I don't need that extra moisture. So I'll just toss this in dried. But they have lemon peel as well, and I love using that with fish or in muffins and stuff like that as well. So the orange peel really plays really nicely with the cinnamon and the sweet potato in here. So that's going in. And for the salt, I tend to steer towards a sea salt for this. I just like the little flakiness of it. It's still a finer sea salt than like a super flaky sea salt, but I'm usually going for the main sea salt. So that's been my go-to. And then the last thing going in our blender here is going to be some buttermilk. Again, this does not have to be buttermilk. I like using buttermilk for this. I like that little bit of tang for it. You can use a whole milk or 2%. You could use oat milk, almond milk, all those different substitutes as well. So I like buttermilk, but to each their own. So all of that's going on in here. And we're just gonna whirl it up.
Linda, I've never used orange peel before in a recipe like this. So have you ever tried lemon peel instead, or?
I have, but I find that for this one, the lemon peel can be a little bit more overpowering than I'm really going for. So I tend to steer towards the orange peel. I don't always find that I have oranges in my fridge. So that's why I absolutely love having the dried orange peel as an option in my pantry, just so that it's really available whenever I want it.
That's a great idea. I've never carried that. I will be.
So we're just gonna mix this just for a second. So bear with me for the noise here.
Feels the same, but I've also used maple sugar. So you've already introduced me to two things I should keep in my cabinet.
I gotta get that buttermilk down there. Okay, so I don't go too crazy on blending this up like super bananas here, because the sweet potatoes already mashed, everything's already mixed in, but I just want to get it really nice and a little bit smooth, and then ultimately what I'm going to do is I'm going to whip the egg whites, which is going to add a little bit of that fluffy, nice texture to my waffles. So in the beginning, I did say we added just the yolks to this. So we're gonna pour this right into the bowl. You don't have to do that. When I first started making this recipe, I added the whole eggs into the blender. Obviously, it makes it, it's one more step to do. So if you're in a pinch, or if you just prefer one texture over the other, You definitely can get away with just adding the whole egg to the blender. It will blend a little bit easier because you're definitely working with more liquid there. But I really like the fluffiness of folding in some egg whites. That's my son's favorite part. So we have two boys. We have a 7-year-old and a 6-month-old. And my 7-year-old, every time we make waffles, he's like, Mom, can I fold them in? Absolutely loves folding in the eggs. So these are our 4 egg whites. And I end up putting them in like a tall container and then using the whisk attachment on my immersion blender. I love that for quickly whipping eggs. So we're actually going to use this twice tonight too.
Linda, I was curious too, would you change this recipe up if you were making it for pancakes, or do you do a similar recipe if it weren't in the waffle maker?
So if I was making it for pancakes, I'd probably just add the whole egg versus whipping personally. I find that I do have a like really go-to pancake recipe that I don't add whipped egg whites. I just add the whole egg too. And texture-wise, that's really what I'm going for when I make my pancakes. So I think this would really work really well for that.
The whipped egg, that's a great tip for waffles. I've never done that.
I've found that over the years, like a lot of recipes for waffles don't suggest whipped egg. And at one point I whipped them and I was like, wow, I really like it adds that extra little fluff to it. And I like a fluffy waffle, what can I say? So the way I've always explained this part is you want to keep the structure and the integrity of the whipped egg as much as possible. So I'm really just going straight down the center and then scooping up and folding it over. And then after I do that, I turn the bowl a quarter turn. And just a couple more times here and we will be completely incorporated. It really is truly amazing how much you can feel the difference in the texture of this batter from when you have when you don't have the egg whites in it, and then all of a sudden you add the egg whites and it's just like a completely different animal. Super cool how that works. Gonna love some good food science. So I have a Cuisinart Griddler right here. This is what I'm going to use for my waffle maker. It has the interchangeable waffle grates. And I don't tend to use cooking spray too often in my kitchen. I usually will put a small little bit of ghee on my cookware or whatever I'm cooking with. But in this case, I find that I've tried and it doesn't work that great. So I've tried to like put a little bit on a paper towel or a kitchen towel and put it on the grates, and it's not pretty. So we're spraying. I also find that when I use the spray, I usually only have to put it on once, and it's pretty good for the whole time. But if I use the ghee, I have to put it on more than once. So I absolutely suggest, if you don't have any scoops in your house, get these, just because it makes so many different tasks so much easier. There's these ice cream scoops, or however you want to call them, will come in different ounce sizes, and I use this for waffles. I use this size for pancakes. I also use it for scooping muffin batter into muffin tins. When I was a kid, we always ended up weirdly using like a 1/4 cup measuring cup and dumping the batter into muffin tins, and it always went everywhere. So that's, I have a couple different.
I'm totally guilty of that, Linda. Thank you for motivating me.
It just always seemed like that was the way we did it, right? And I never thought of anything else until I started using these, and I was like, oh my gosh, what have I been doing? So I put a bunch of batter right in the center here, and then I'm gonna push this guy right on down. I'm gonna let that sucker cook for a second. Whenever I'm making waffles, if I'm doing like a brunch or something like that, I always have my oven, depending upon if I'm doing other stuff in the oven, obviously, but I usually like to have my oven around like 225, 250, so that I can keep things warm as I'm making them, so that then, I'm not, obviously waffles take a little bit. You're gonna end up with like 4 or 3, depending upon how they're shaped after all is said and done. So you really want to be able to keep them warm in between batches. So in this instance, I'm also making a frittata. So my oven is currently set to 375. So as long as they're not staying at 375 for too long, that would be okay. But I wouldn't traditionally want to just like put a plate of waffles in at 375 and 15 minutes later go and get them. They would be very dry. So we're gonna move in just a second to the frittata. After this comes out, we'll throw one more in just so you can see the process here. Hey Holly, how's it going? Welcome. And for the frittata, we're gonna be doing a Adirondack red potato with spinach, shallots, and cheddar cheese. So Adirondack red potatoes are a potato that we grow here on our farm, and they're really cool. It looks almost kind of whitish on the outside here, but it's got a pink skin to it, and then it has then the flesh is also really pink too. So I just really like it. It's a really good roasting and frying potato, but it also does like really well in something like this, like the frittata. So let's check and see how this guy's doing in here. I'm gonna give it just one more minute. So I don't have one of those little waffle makers that has like a little timer that dings when you have to flip it back over or something like that. This thing is just fold it and check it at the perfect time. So once we take this out, I love doing different types of toppings in my waffles. Some butter or ghee. We tap a couple of our maple trees here. So every year I collect some sap and make some maple syrup. So we have some homemade maple syrup that we'll top our waffles with. I also really love using like coconut chips, and then this is, for this waffle particularly, I really like adding this to it on top. Let's see how we're doing. I think we're there. So here's our, oh my gosh, I wish you could smell this. It smells so good. So here's our waffles. So obviously I needed a little bit more batter in there. but then I would just use a knife and just cut right along here. But it's got like this nice, it's got a little tiny crisp to the outside here, but texturally, like it's so soft and fluffy. And the cool thing is you're like actually eating oatmeal and sweet potatoes too. So, yay.
Yeah. I make it for Vince. This looks like a setup. I can't believe how crispy they look still, or firm. I would picture the sweet potatoes sort of possibly falling apart a little bit, or not holding together as well as a typical waffle would.
It really, like, Lauren, sometime when you come over, we're gonna have to make these together, because it's so amazing how like fluffy the batter is and everything still. When you're working with the batter, it's almost, obviously it's orange, like you guys can see this, it's orange, but it definitely does not feel like sweet potatoes. It's really cool. So this was the last thing I was talking about was this is I love Farm True. Their products are really awesome, and they're a small business in Connecticut. But this is a ghee nut butter. It's a cashew and coconut butter. It has this like super amazing creaminess to it, and it honestly, for some reason, I'm not quite sure why, but it reminds me of white chocolate. So I heat this up just a smidge, and then I'll drizzle it over the waffle, and it's just yum. So I'm gonna let this last one cook here for a second, and then we're gonna switch hands over to our frittata. We'll just nudge that waffle maker out of the way here. So frittatas, I absolutely love when it comes to brunch, because it's like you get all of the benefits of like a quiche, and it's super, super flexible in terms of what you want to put in it, different toppings, different ingredients. But it's really easy. And there's also two different ways where you can cook them. So you can do a stovetop frittata, which is going to cook completely, switch that. Oven frittata, which is going to cook completely in the oven. Or you can do a stovetop oven combo for frittata, where you're going to start out cooking it on the stove, and then you're going to finish it in the oven. So that's what we're going to do today. So we have, we also have chickens on our farm. So I have a dozen eggs. I'm using a 12-inch fry pan here. So it's got a little bit of a side to it, but nothing like super deep. You don't need like this crazy deep skillet here. For our potatoes, you also want to make sure that you're cooking if you want to cook your vegetables, that you're adding to the frittata first. That's really ideal. It's not like a omelet that's going to take an hour to cook in the oven. This is going to cook for like 7 to 10 minutes. So whatever you're putting inside of it is not going to have enough time to get soft and cooked. You don't need to be crunching on a potato when you're eating your frittata later. So I have my mandolin here. I'm just going to shred this. We're going for not like super, super thin, but I want to have a little bit of texture. And you could also do like a diced potato. One of the things that I love doing with frittatas is like just pulling out whatever I have for leftover vegetables in my fridge. Even if they're cooked already, it doesn't matter. So if you made like home fries yesterday, sounds like frittata is great for tomorrow. So grab your home fries, some extra bacon or sausage, or anything else that you have in there, and all of a sudden you have all your ingredients for your frittata. So here's my potato. It's pretty thin, but not like paper thin. And it's got this really nice pink to it. So this is an Adirondack red potato. And if you have a lot of moisture in your vegetables, you definitely, you could block them out a little bit with a paper towel. You don't want to add too much moisture. Nobody wants a soupy frittata. So I would say, potato wise, you don't have to sit there and like dry your potatoes with a paper towel, but How's our waffle going here? Alrighty. I'm gonna take this last waffle out here. Alrighty. So, so I've got the potatoes here, and I'm going to pan fry the potatoes just for a second, just to get them a little bit softer. So again, I love ghee. So I'm adding a little bit of the ghee to the pan. You can cook with any other type of cooking oil that you like. But I'm just gonna lay these out in a single layer on the pan and then just flip them after they, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds or a minute. So they just get a little softer. Overall, you're going for I've got 12 eggs. So for a 12 egg frittata, you're going for, I like a pretty decent amount of vegetables. So I'm going for about 2 to 3 cups of vegetables here. So I have, this is 1 potato here, but I already did a couple earlier so that you guys didn't have to sit there and watch me just pan fry potatoes. So this is what it's ultimately going to look like when I'm pan frying them on the stove. It seems like a little bit of a tedious exercise here, but it goes really fast. So, so these are the ones that I did earlier. So I put them on a paper towel so that it took a little bit of the moisture away from the ghee and from the potato, but they're just a little bit softer and ready to go. So we'll let these cook for a second. Next, I have some spinach. So on our farm, we have 4 greenhouses that we grow in straight through the winter. So this is our spinach from our greenhouse that has been growing since November. Spinach is one of those really cool things that we planted it in November, and it will grow. We did what we call our first cutting of it when it was a full-size spinach leaf, and we'll cut all the way to the base of the plant, and then it will regrow, and then we'll cut it again, and it will regrow again, and we'll cut it again. Eventually we stop this cycle just because we need to use the greenhouse for other things, but it means that we have lots of really awesome spinach all winter long. So I'm going to saute this spinach in just a minute once our potatoes are done. And I also have a shallot. So for this, I'm going to, since I have the mandolin out, I'm just going to thinly slice the shallot, and we'll end up with some little shaved shallot that we will also saute. As you're going here, you also want to make sure you are seasoning your vegetables too. Eggs are great, but they don't come pre-seasoned, and neither do your vegetables. So just make sure you're adding a little bit of salt, a little pepper. I'm always tasting as I go, so don't hesitate to, taste and make sure you're adding the right amount of seasoning. Frittatas also work great with fresh herbs too. So I didn't have any because we don't have any growing at the moment, and I wanted to keep this pretty strictly like produce from our farm. So so I just stuck with what I've got. So we'll flip these guys here. Sorry if you hear the clicking in the background. My stove is revolting and I need a new one. So fun story is that we have a new one. It's actually on the other side of the kitchen. it just hasn't gotten hooked up yet. So you guys get to see like the last couple days of our old stove. All right.
Linda, would you recommend the mandolin you're using? Do you have a certain one that you like using?
Honestly, I wish I could say yes, but I've only ever used the mandolin that I have, and then just one in a commercial kitchen. That was like definitely a very large mandolin. This one, I don't even know. It looks like it says Genius. Yeah.
Okay.
I got it at a yard sale when I was in high school. This thing stuck with me for a little bit of time, guys.
That's a great product right there.
Still works. So I'm gonna start cracking the eggs here while those potatoes finish up. We're gonna do a dozen eggs, and then we're also going to add about a quarter cup of dairy to this, just to make it nice and creamy. You could use, I would suggest using a full fat. So if you're doing like an oat milk, I wouldn't go for like a really light oat milk or something like that. I am using 2 tablespoons of heavy cream and 2 tablespoons of whole milk. It tends to really bring out the creaminess and the richness of it versus using like a 2% or a skim milk. Like I said, you don't want a watery frittata. So we'll keep that on the more, full fat side of things. We're also gonna add some cheese. This would be probably really awesome with some goat cheese or something as well, or a feta. I had cheddar, and we love cheddar cheese in our house. So, and cheddar and potatoes ended up making me think of like a loaded baked potato. So I just went with it. But again, it just shows how like completely versatile this is, where you can really go in so many different directions with this. So there's my dozen eggs. I have my cream and my milk. We're gonna toss that in. And then I'm gonna throw in a pinch of salt here. And a couple grinds of pepper. All right, we'll take these potatoes off here. So I'm tossing a tiny bit more ghee in, and then I'm just gonna add my shallots and my spinach. And these will really just cook for a minute here. I don't need them to get like super, super soft. I just want the shallots to cook a little bit, and then we're gonna throw in the spinach. Oftentimes with frittatas, you're going to add your eggs and then you'll mix it a little bit in the pan. In this instance, we're not going to, because I'm actually going to layer it a little bit so the potatoes kind of get a little bit evenly distributed here. So we'll get the potatoes all nicely distributed, and then we'll go from there. While that shallot is cooking, I'm gonna throw one more sweet potato waffle on here because it smells really good, and I'm excited about eating them after. The one thing, if you are new to waffles, I've noticed my waffle maker specifically once I make the first one, the waffle maker is like, oh, right, we're making waffles. And then it heats up a lot faster in between them. So I find that I have to really check on them a lot faster. Otherwise, I end up with burnt waffles. All right. So these shallots are really just about where I want them. I really just want them to very lightly saute here because they'll continue to soften a little bit while I add the spinach to them and when they are cooking in the oven. So again, we're gonna season this just a little bit. One of the tricky things too with seasoning, I find that you can really like underdo salt, but then you can also very quickly overdo it. So I'm trying to strike that happy medium. And I told you we'd use this twice, so I'm trying not to disappoint. So this is again my immersion blender. I have the whisk attachment on. So I'm gonna turn it down a little bit so we don't whisk eggs all over my kitchen. So we can whisk this.
Linda, do you find that the waffles will reheat at all too? Do you ever freeze them or try reheating them the next day?
Yeah. Yep. We do that pretty frequently in this house, especially with these waffles. These are a total hit with my son. And they work really, really well reheated. We usually just toss them right in the toaster oven.
Perfect. I'm always looking for that quick thing for Vince, for my little guy, make in the morning. So that'd be great to make a big batch and have them ready.
Yeah, they definitely work really well like that, for sure. So now I'm adding in, I have a cup of shredded cheese here. Again, this is cheddar, but again, like you could totally do so many different things here. So I'm adding in probably about 3/4 of a cup of it. And then I'm gonna leave just a little bit just to put it right on the top before I put it in the oven. I'm gonna add my spinach now and saute this. I love how this, like, I just put like a mountain of spinach into my pan, but it's actually gonna cook down to like seemingly nothing. So. All right. So you could see the spinach leaves that I was holding up when I was first starting with this. You could definitely see that the spinach is a pretty, I mean, some of these are pretty big leaves of spinach. So I didn't chop this. You totally could. When I've done this before, I found that the spinach leaves really are super soft and they easily cut with a fork. So it's not like it's like a stringy spinach right in the middle of the frittata.
We used to always add spinach to our frittatas or omelets. And once our son started eating with us, he's almost 2 now. He really dislikes spinach. So he wouldn't eat anything. So now we never put spinach in our eggs. Do you have the same problem with Logan, or is he a spinach eater?
He definitely goes through phases where he'll, like the other night we made this and he was like all about it. And oftentimes I find that he really enjoys most of the vegetables that we grow, especially here on the farm, because he's so involved in growing them and oftentimes harvesting them and washing them. And he sees the whole process. But he's absolutely gone through some pretty big phases too, for sure.
There's hope.
So I have the spinach and the shallots kind of evenly spaced around the pan here. I'm not gonna sit here and like individually place each potato because let's be honest, at that point we'd have burnt spinach and we'd also be here all night. So I'm just kind of grabbing a couple at a time here and spacing them out so that I have enough to cover the whole pan. And then we're gonna pour those eggs right on in. Alrighty. And we're there. So now I've got the eggs, which has the cream and the milk in it, and 3/4 of nice cheese as well. It's gonna go right over everything. I am gonna kind of like give it a little bit of a shake just to try to encourage the egg to get all the way down and around the spinach leaves. And we're gonna cook it. Right now I'm kind of hovering right around a medium-high heat on this. And it's gonna cook on here for just about a minute or so, just until the edges are set. And then we're gonna toss it right in the oven. So obviously when you're choosing a pan to do this, just make sure you know that your pan is in fact oven safe, because otherwise we end up with a really big mess. So this pan is oven safe up to 500 degrees. So at 350, it will be just fine. Actually, sorry, I'm at 375 right now. So I just topped the rest of the cheese on there, and sorry, my finger got in the screen there. We topped the rest of the cheese, and then we'll put this baby right in the oven. But you could see now how like you can add so many different things to it. I've had one of my favorite ones was kind of like a riff on a caprese. Basically, it had mozzarella cheese and sun-dried tomatoes and basil, and it was just so refreshing. Really nice and light, and so I really like playing around with these. I love putting kind of walking out and to the farm to just see what we can do with our produce, and this just absolutely is so flexible. So I love it. Alrighty, so the edges are kind of set, so I'm going to turn my stove off here, and if you can hear this annoying clicking, you now won't be able to hear it anymore, so that's great. So I'll move this guy right into the oven. So that is in there. It's middle shelf of the oven, so you get that nice heat evenly flowing around it. It's gonna take anywhere between probably like 7 to 10, 15 minutes. It really depends upon the size of your pan, how deep your pan is, and you know what ingredients you have in it. But you want to keep a really careful eye on it, because it's gonna go from being a nice fluffy frittata that's really perfectly cooked to a kind of dried out eggy frittata. So if you've ever cooked a quiche before, you kind of want to pull it when it's kind of at that same stage where the center has a slight jiggle to it, but it's almost completely set. So you'll take it right out of the oven and just let it cool for just about a minute before you slice it. So this one should probably take about 10 minutes or so. So we've kind of covered all of the frittata and waffles and our drink here. If you guys want, you're more than welcome to hang out. We can answer any questions that you have while this puppy cooks a little bit. Yeah, that's kind of all we got.
I love it. It all looks delicious, Linda. Thank you. I'm enjoying myself here too. But we have, I guess just to mention now on Foodqu, there are groups. So as you're cooking, I'm thinking, oh, I can see discussing this and this and this. And like I've never had Adirondack potatoes or used maple sugar, used orange peels in my waffles. The ice cream scoop seems so simple, but for some reason I'm not doing that. So I love all these tips you're able to give us. Thank you.
Well, this has been a blast. And you can see here, these are some of the waffles. They got a little bit darker on this second batch because, like I said, I wasn't watching them as carefully since we were cooking other stuff. And this heats up a little bit faster. So here are our waffles. They're a little bit more golden brown than I usually go for. But they're still like so soft. They've got such a nice like fluff to them. And this is going to be my dinner. So I'm excited about that.
It looks delicious. Did you mention earlier, what do you use do you use toppings or do you eat them just as is?
So I usually end up going for, it really depends what I'm feeling like. I love maple syrup. But these waffles, I really love taking on a little bit of a different twist where I'm totally like a classic when it comes to like regular traditional waffles. Maple syrup, butter, yes please. But for these, I absolutely love putting a cashew coconut butter on. I warm this up just a little bit so it kind of drizzles really nice. And I'll use this and I'll put some little coconut chips over top and it is delicious.
That sounds delicious. We do have a question in the chat. If you used pre-shredded cheddar, or did you shred it tonight? And does it matter?
So I did shred it tonight before the class started, and I tend to almost always opt for, whenever I can, shredding the actual cheese. I find that there's only a very few instances where a pre-shredded cheese tends to really work in the application that I want to use it. When you purchase a pre-shredded cheese, it oftentimes has either a flour coating or a cornstarch or some anti-caking on it. And I don't always love the way that melts or doesn't melt. So I usually will shred it myself. So, yeah.
Thank you.
One other thing that I find for waffles in general, I love just like a really simple, super basic waffle recipe, and whipping the egg whites into it. I just find that it makes it really fluffy, and they do tend to keep a little bit better that way when I reheat them. They're not like, I mean, I don't know, I have this certain nostalgia for like an Eggo waffle when I was a kid, but they don't become like hard Eggo waffles in the freezer and then you reheat them, they still stay soft. And I think that like the egg white really lends to that a lot. But you could totally add other stuff to this waffle recipe too if you wanted to do, I think like a white chocolate chip would be super yummy in there. Like a sweet potato white chocolate chip sounds really good if you're going for like a little bit more of a sweet tooth. I could totally see myself adding some sliced bananas in here too. My 6-month-old would probably go crazy for that. He's like a sweet potato banana fiend right now. And we just introduced him to French toast, and he was like, so I think his day would probably be pretty made with a sweet potato banana waffle.
That all sounds fantastic to me too. Yeah, you had me thinking that because we do still freeze often pancakes or little muffins for Vince. But I've never tried freezing waffles, and sweet potato is his jam. So this is very helpful for me tonight.
Yeah, we've recently I find that they don't make it to the freezer stage of use here, because our 7-year-old ends up taking them to lunch, and he'll eat like 2 for breakfast, and then he'll take 2 to lunch, and then all of a sudden there's like 1 waffle for me, and that's it. I also love when I'm roasting the sweet potatoes, oftentimes I'll roast and then freeze too. In like, if I'm gonna plan on making a batch of waffles and I'm roasting a sweet potato, I'll throw in an extra one sometimes, and then I'll have, you know, a cup and a half in the freezer ready to go for the next time I want to make waffles. So I can just pull that out the night before. I don't have to worry about roasting a whole other potato. It's already there, it's done. And anytime I can make that a little bit faster and a little easier the next time, I'm all for that for sure.
That makes sense. What do you have on the farm right now that you're excited for?
Well, our crew and my husband have been really busy planting and seeding. We have a spring CSA, and I absolutely love the spring CSA because it's just like that time of year when everything's starting to wake up, and you get to kind of see that little burst of it right away real fast. So we have 2 greenhouses that are planted right now for that, and in that we have red Russian kale and arugula and tatsoi and bok choy and spinach, some salad mix. It's just like all of those really nice greens that just after winter you're just like craving. So I'm really excited about that. One of my favorite things in the spring was last year we had some bok choy out of the greenhouse, and then we all kind of took a walk one evening, went up and picked some asparagus, and we just grilled the asparagus and some spring onions and bok choy, and it was just yum.
Well, I can attest to anything I've ever had at your farm is so delicious.
Well, thank you. So I'm just gonna give this guy a little check here. So I'm gonna try to bring it a little closer. So this needs just another couple minutes. I don't know if y'all can see the little jiggle it's got going on. So that's a little too much jiggle. So we're gonna put her back in for another minute. So that is almost done. It should probably be another like 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'll pull it out and it'll be frittata time.
Well, that looks delicious, Linda. Thank you. Do you typically, out of curiosity, use a topping on frittata?
So I really debated on that today with trying to figure out if I want to do like one of the things we're harvesting right now are microgreens and pea shoots, and I was like, oh, it'd be cute, like just like put some microgreens or pea shoots on. We'll oftentimes have this as a light dinner too, with like a side salad, and I was thinking, oh, you know, you could really play on that with just a little bit of microgreens on the top of the frittata. You could totally do like a salsa or a creme fraiche or a sour cream. Some avocado slices on top would also be really yummy. I'm hungry.
That all sounds so delicious, and I wish I was cooking along with you right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I tend to also love like a Southwestern like breakfast burrito or something like that. So I really love going like black bean salsa and, you know, some sliced avocado and on top of stuff like that with eggs. So Especially with the potatoes in, I feel like you could totally do like a little play on like a Southwestern vibe.
That sounds fantastic. Will you do us a favor and will you post on Foodqu or your Instagram somewhere, maybe both, a picture of the frittata tonight?
Absolutely.
We can get into it.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see it. So everything looks so delicious. I am not surprised. Linda has cooked for me a few times and it's always been really, really delicious. So thank you, Linda. Linda is also on Instagram, of course, Tangerini's Farm. I'll type it in the chat right now, just so everyone knows the spelling. And again, if you're in Millis, Mass, or the area, it is worth a drive. It is so beautiful. And you can see some of the animals outside, and it's just lovely. They have a beautiful patio to eat at, and it's so great. I'm seeing Holly. Holly was there last summer too with us. Oh, that was such a nice day. We'll do that again this summer.
Yes,
so, and if people have been on Foodqu, we have groups now where I mentioned earlier where you can chat about any topic. So it's been really fun there to kind of see what people are cooking up and substitutions or just getting people's feedback on certain dishes. And but you can find Linda at Tangerini's Farm on Instagram, and I'm Lauren C. Fitzgerald on Instagram, and of course Foodqu is on Instagram, Facebook, all of the things. But we'd love if you haven't to go over and take the quiz and interact, say hello, tell us you were in the class tonight. Love to say hi. And Linda, do you need a few more minutes? Do you want to show it off before, or do you want to?
I think it's just about there. So
okay.
We can break it
again. So
if anybody wants to, if people want to stick around and experience the true frittata here.
I'm curious.
So I've been having so much fun with Lauren here, going through everything with Foodqu. It's been a real blast, and I absolutely love seeing the different stuff that people post. It's been such a treat because oftentimes I don't spend a whole bunch of time myself just like browsing social media or Pinterest or whatever. We have 2 kids, we own a business, run a farm, all of this stuff. And oftentimes I'm just cooking based on the season and whatever I have available at that moment. But being able to go on and see the different groups and seeing what people are doing, it's been so much fun. I found that I'm able to just look at these pictures and say, oh my gosh, I think I can do that. I have the stuff here. And I've done so many different things where I've seen something that's been posted and then I've been able to just like go grab the stuff, or I have it, and it's given me a lot of inspiration. It's been really fun. So here's our frittata. She's nice and pretty. So you want it to definitely, it should stay nice and fluffy for you. And we're just gonna use our spatula and break out a slice here. Ta-da! Nice and steamy. It's like holding its shape really nicely, so it's not like droopy and flopping on the plate, but you can just see that, if I let it cool on the stove for just one more second, it really would, finish setting right in the center here. It's like the smidgen, littlest, tiniest bit runny, but the whole rest of it has this really nice fluffy egg. You've got the potato layered in there and some spinach on the bottom, as well as kind of sneaking up in between the potato. And yay!
That looks so delicious. I love it layered like that a bit too.
I just love how the potato just kind of like, I mean, we really just put it on there nice and not too picky. It just kind of like evened it out a little bit, and it just looks all nice, and it's gives it a nice color contrast too with that Adirondack red. So I love color this.
Yeah, like just peeking through. So that was so great, Linda. Thank you. We're all just gonna drool here. I wish I lived close to you right now. This is fantastic. And it is, like Linda was saying, I'll echo it, but just being on Foodqu and seeing, getting inspiration from others and what they post, their recipes, what they're chatting about in the groups. I've just found it so fun and helpful, and it from anything from like product recommendations to involved recipes and dishes, and it's been such a blast. So I appreciate you cooking for us tonight, Linda, and I appreciate everyone coming to the class tonight, and I hope to see you all on Foodqu soon.
Thanks so much. Have a good night.